In the blistering heat of a Sicilian summer, on July 2, 1943, the air above the Castelvetrano airfield roared with the thunder of warplanes. A lone German Focke-Wulf 190 sliced through the sky, its silver wings glinting against the Mediterranean haze, its pilot confident hunting easy prey. But death was already descending from above, silent, patient, and precise. A burst of 50 caliber fire tore through the German fighter's fuselage, sending it spiraling down in a trail of smoke and flame. Watching from the cockpit of his P-40 Warhawk, First Lieutenant Charles B. Hall, just 22 years old, realized what he'd done. He'd scored his first kill. But this was no ordinary victory. Hall, a young black pilot from Brazil, Indiana, had just shattered one of the Nazis' most poisonous myths, that courage, intelligence, and skill could somehow be defined by color. That kill marked the dawn of a legend. It was the first enemy aircraft ever shot down by the Tuskegee Airmen, the all-black fighter pilots of the 99th Fighter Squadron, and it sent shockwaves through both the Luftwaffe and the segregated United States Army Air Forces. The Germans would soon give these men a name, Schwarze Vogelmenschen, the Black Birdmen, a label born from disbelief that would soon turn into fear and respect. Their story had begun long before that Sicilian sky. Back home, the walls of segregation stood taller than any hangar. The U.S. military itself believed that black men lacked the intelligence and discipline to fly or lead in combat. Official reports claimed they were unfit for technical duty or command. In 1925, the U.S. Army War, College published a paper declaring that black soldiers were inherently inferior. It was not merely prejudice, and it was policy. Yet in small corners of America, pioneers were already proving those words false. In World War I, Eugene Bullard had flown for France after being rejected by the U.S. in the 1920s. Bessie Coleman earned her pilot's license in France because no American school would teach her. And by the 1930s, the Coffee School of Aeronautics in Chicago was quietly training dozens of black pilots, planting seeds that would one day take flight as the Tuskegee legacy. When Franklin D. Roosevelt faced re-election in 1940, civil rights leaders pressed him relentlessly. Walter White, A. Philip Randolph, William H. Hastie, and others demanded inclusion. Their argument was simple but devastating. How could America fight for democracy abroad while denying it at home? To secure black votes and answer growing public pressure, Congress passed Public Law 18, mandating one flight school for black pilots. Thus began the so-called experiment in the 99th Pursuit Squadron, trained at Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama. Everything about it was designed to fail. Equipment was outdated, expectations were low, and white officers made no effort to hide their skepticism. But among those cadets was a man destined to redefine American aviation, Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., the son of the Army's first black general. At West Point, Davis had endured 4 years of silence. Not a single white cadet spoke to him outside of duty. That discipline, that quiet defiance became the steel in his leadership. When Davis and his 26 pilots finally arrived in North Africa in April 1943, they were treated not as equals, but as curiosities, an experiment in flesh and blood. Their commanding officer, Colonel William Momier, mistrusted them and assigned only coastal patrols, flights so uneventful. They earned the cruel nickname morale missions, but the men trained harder than anyone. They knew that every mission was not only a fight against the enemy, it was a test against centuries of doubt. Then came that fateful July morning when Charles Hall's bullets burned through the sky, and the myth of racial inferiority fell to earth in smoke. Word spread through Allied lines and through the U.S. press that a black pilot had shot down a German fighter. For the first time, the 99th Squadron's achievements couldn't be ignored. Hall's victory wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. Proof that the so-called experiment was a success. From that moment, the Tuskegee Airmen rose from obscurity to legend. In early 1944, during the fierce Anzio campaign, they faced swarms of German Focke-Wulfs and Messerschmitts, often flying outdated P-40s, slower, clumsier, and less armed than their opponents. Yet through sheer discipline and teamwork, they downed 13 enemy planes in 2 days. Their white critics were forced to rewrite their reports. The word unaggressive vanished, replaced by highly effective. By mid-1944, the Tuskegee squadrons, and now part of the 302nd fighter group transitioned to the sleek, silver P-51 Mustang, its tail painted crimson red. Those red tails would become the most feared escort fighters in the skies of Europe. While other American fighter units chased dogfights to rack up personal kill scores, the red tails did something different. They stayed with the bombers. Their job was not glory but protection. Bomber crews flying into the heart of Germany soon began making a simple request over the radio. Give us the red tails, because when those scarlet tails appeared above the clouds, the men in the bombers knew they'd make it home. Their greatest challenge came on March 24, 1945, when the red tails escorted bombers deep into Berlin, where the new Me-262 jet fighters, the fastest in the world, might have waited. The Tuskegee pilots studied those jets, predicted their attack runs, and trapped them in turning battles where the jet's speed was useless. That day they shot down 3 Me-262s, a feat unmatched by many seasoned white squadrons. But victory always had a cost. Dozens of Tuskegee Airmen were shot down, captured, or killed. Some endured captivity in German POW camps, where irony reigned. They were often treated more fairly by German guards than they had been by some of their own countrymen. When the war ended, the record spoke for itself. 15,000 sorties, 500 missions, 112 enemy aircraft destroyed in the air, 96 distinguished flying crosses, and only 27 bombers lost under their protection, one of the lowest loss rates of any escort group in the war. The Tuskegee Airmen didn't just fight the Luftwaffe, they fought history itself and won. Their courage forced the U.S. military to confront its own hypocrisy. In 1948, just 3 years after the war, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981, desegregating the U.S. Armed Forces, a direct result of the Tuskegee Airmen's heroism and discipline. Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. became the first black general in the U.S. Air Force. Charles Hall, the young pilot who'd opened the door that July morning in Sicily, returned home to quiet pride, never boasting, never seeking fame, content to know that he had proved something the world said was impossible. Years later, bomber crews who had flown with red tail protection would look back with tears and gratitude, calling them not the black birdmen, but the red tail angels. In 2007, long after their wings had faded into history, the surviving Tuskegee Airmen stood together in Washington, D.C., receiving the Congressional Gold Medal, America's highest civilian honor. As a nation finally said thank you, the skies they once fought through are silent now. But their story still echoes, a reminder that valor has no color, that the measure of a pilot lies not in his skin, but in his skill, his discipline, and his heart. On that summer morning over Sicily, when Charles B. Hall pulled the trigger of his Warhawk, he wasn't just firing at an enemy plane, he was firing at prejudice itself. And from the smoke of that fallen Focke-Wulf, something greater than victory emerged, a legacy of equality, excellence, and courage that would change America forever.